What's up? It's your boy D Tragic, repping 805 Hip Hop, aka Derek Duncan as you see him on Facebook. Shout out to Destructive for, bringing me out here to kind of tell you a little bit about myself. Kind of wanted to start off back in the elementary school, little kid growing up in Ventura. Probably one of I always joke with people and tell them one of 12 black people here growing up in Ventura. I just, went to, the classic elementary school here, Portola. I think that's where I like to tell people where I got involved with hip hop. I have a brother older than me, and growing up I had two brothers. One of them's passed away so far. We were pretty much 1 year apart, but into the same things, Middle school, Anna Kappa. My little sister, I have a little sister too. It's a little bit younger than me too. She kind of trailed to schools a little bit after us. As a kid, breakdancing, and graffiti artwork were parts of hip hop that got involved with without really knowing the hip hop was a culture at that time. So it started off as little kids. Shout out to Chad and Jonathan Schroeder, my boy Randy Martinez, which went on to be a really big Marvel comic artist and work for Lucasfilm and do all kinds of Star Wars artwork. We were those little kid breakdancers. The black dude, the white dude, the Mexican dude. We had the Chinese homie, Vietnamese homies too. We're all breakers. As little kids, we do the talent shows at the school. But, thinking back, that's where we got involved. That's when Run DMC came out. Some of the people we were listening to, Curtis Blow, my oldest brother, would always bring those records in the house, and as kids, we would listen to them right there. It was the 5th grade, right before middle school. The 8th graders from middle school came over to our school, and we were like, whoa, we got the 8th graders, they're coming through. But it was the band members, and they came by, and in our cafeteria, they had all the different instruments that you could play when you go to middle school. So if you want to join the band, they'll teach you how to play instruments, how to read music, how to perform. And as a kid growing up, I always seen what I called the Christmas horn. And that's the French horn with the big bell at the end and everything. For some reason, as a kid, I just loved that thing. And I saw it on the table, and I asked one of the kids, I was like, you can learn how to play this? You'll teach me how to play it? And they're like, yeah, in the band, you can join in the 6th grade. In 6th grade, I joined the band, and I learned how to play the French horn. While I was in the band, I realized that I liked drums, I liked the other instruments, and I would kind of learn and play along with them too as well when I could. So I think about music, how music kind of cultivated inside of me, through different forms. During middle school, I was in the band. I played 6th, 7th grade, 8th grade, all the years, concert band, everything. And I couldn't wait to join the marching band. So joined the marching band. The marching band was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. I learned how to play a bunch of other instruments, the mellophone, the bass clarinet. Shout out to Connor Cassavan. He taught me how to play the bass clarinet over a weekend. But I always paid attention to the drums, so in my junior year, I started playing drums and I started playing the snare. Moving on from instruments into drums, it's in high school, that's where some of our friends, we all got involved with hip hop again. We're in the drums, we're in the drum line, and we're making the illest beats that any of the bands were making, just on some freestyle stuff. And we also DJ. So as a kid, I was 15. My oldest brother had moved, from New Jersey to California, and he was a DJ. Growing up over the years, sometimes he would call in, hey, Derek, what you guys doing? Oh yeah, I'm over here. And he'd be like, listen. And he would put the phone up, and he'd be out there scratching. We'd be like, oh, when we go out there, we want to scratch too. I want to be a DJ. And through him, it was I really wanted to become a DJ. So we had little makeshift turntables and stuff that our friends, we would get together. I was a DJ. They would be rapping. So we had a crew. Shout out to my boy Poke Dog. That's where we got started back in high school. His first day out here from Chicago. Met up with the homie right there, and, he's gone to do some really good records with a lot of your favorite producers. My brother actually moved down, and we got a pair of turntables, and that's when I started DJing. A lot of battle DJ, turntablist stuff like that. So scratching, juggling. I may not have been the best, but I value, and that's what we would do. Shout out to J Scratch too, that the legend J Scratch. There was a nightclub for kids, really. called Moggs, and Jay Scratch was a DJ there. That was my first time being able to get to play at a club as a kid. I was 16 at the time, and after that, I just wanted to be a DJ. I wanted to play in a club. I just wanted to play at parties. I would play at friends' parties. My first paid gig was a quinceañera. I was scared that I didn't have Spanish music and all the hits, and they're like, no, just play regular music. And it was after that I just couldn't believe that being able to, for one, make money, and then two, make a living playing music. I just couldn't believe it. You know, and I'm a kid, and you know, like, make $100 for playing at a party, for playing music at a party where they fed me and they gave me beer, everything. It was really cool. And at that time too, it was, you know, we were getting more serious with like the performance aspect of like hip hop. Boy, 12 grand. We had dance crews. We kind of went right into, you know, rap crews, and we would produce beats. We met up with a cat named Mark Aruda, R.I.P. That's the homie right there, Grape Nut. From the mobile home parks in Ventura. And, you know, he always had equipment. He had computers, everything. And that's where we started at, like, our conquest as like artists. Like, I was a DJ, I would make beats. We had an ASR X Pro, Cakewalk. We used a wide variety of software synthesizers. This guy, Mark, with him going over to his place early in the game where it was really hard to become this artist that a lot of people are today. It's really easy today. Back in the day, computers really didn't even exist like they do today. Keyboards and a different equipment, you had to buy separate things. They were thousands of dollars. So as kids, you couldn't really afford it. But this guy seemed to always have new pieces of equipment, and he would let us come over to his place and, you know, just work out. That's what we called it. You know, we would do the battle of the 5-minute beats, to where different people who produce music would produce beats, you know, grab samples, make beats, and kind of battle back and forth. And that's where a lot of the recording started. We decided, hey, like, you know, with all these artists that are coming in that rap, and for the fact that we put on parties. So kind of going back to high school, these guys, I grew up with them in high school. We started a crew called 805 Family Underground. We had a party crew. We would put on parties, a lot of underground stuff, you know, that I'm not going to tell you about. A lot of big parties, and we were working with the artists that were from here. So big ups to Nevermind. You know, they were kids, man. They were kids. We were doing hip hop shows with that weirdo that would put on the fake MTV party shows and invite all the kids out to perform. Oxnard Skate Palace. There was a lot of artists that we grew up with, you know, that were out performing. And we say, hey, you know, we're putting on these big parties, and our parties were doing pretty good. So we'd have a lot of people there. DJs, lights, mics, everything. So we say, why don't the artists come out and perform at our parties? It not only makes your party more epic, but it gives the artists a place to be able to perform. Because we're talking about artists that aren't big, they're not on the radio, they're local legends and whatever, but they honestly have skills. Because you couldn't be whack and try to come to the party. So later in the game, what we started doing is the underground parties and all that. But then jumping a little bit forward, after making beats, after doing these underground shows, being a kid, you're about to turn 21, you know, you're growing up a little bit. You're now able to get into places that you weren't able to get into before. You had to be 21 to get into certain clubs. So now we're in the nightclub scene. My boy Madface, shout out to Madface. He does promotion still. You know, he's a big reggae promoter right now out of Ventura County. I met this cat, had a sit down with him over at TGI Fridays. I remember him. I sat down with him and Kika from his company, and he was really into promotions at the time. Coming out as this kid doing underground parties and DJing, I just really wanted to DJ. And I saw he was telling me, hey, doing promotions for, you know, thetruth.com and Dada Footwear and Nike Battleground Basketball and Snoop Dogg. And there's a lot of different promotions that, you know, I could get you involved with, nightclubs and stuff like that. And, you know, working with Randy, you know, he opened up some doors for me that allowed me to DJ in clubs, allowed me to DJ at events. And you know, during that time, it helps build your name, like get new relationships with artists and labels. You know, that's really what I wanted to do. So we were doing it. It was a lot of fun. During that time too, I met a lot of artists. Getting a little bit older, started working at this nightclub. A lot of big shows were happening there at this place. The club was bringing artists down to perform. We were working with the radio stations. There was opportunities where artists would come down and perform, big artists too. This nightclub, rest in peace, dude, Nickleby's nightclub, one of the most legendary urban nightclubs out in Ventura that you'll ever hear about. Hosted a number of acts from Ice-T to Eminem to EPMD to Rick Ross before he was the big cat that you know about today. A lot of artists, the Dog Pound, West Coast, East Coast, a lot of different people. It was really cool because when I got into the situation at the nightclub where, you know, who was the first person? It was Chad. I forget Chad's last name. Shout out to Chad. If everybody remembers Chad, you know what I mean? Shout out to Chad, man. He gave me the opportunity to start bringing, you know, openers to a lot of these big shows, and also the opportunity to start doing my own shows there. Right off the bat, you know, like, who am I going to do? You know, our own people. Because think about it, you know, these big artists, everybody already knows them. They're cool, you know. There was one day, I'm gonna tell you a little story. Shout out to Corrupt. I was just with them. Big ups to my boy C. Lim from Cuzzalo Inc., the 2022 GERD Award winner, Corrupt. There was one time, you know, we did several shows with Corrupt, his you know, young Roscoe DeSoto and Youth Authority, but he was down here. We did a show at Crown Plaza. It was called the Holiday Inn at the time. But we had a show out there with him. And I remember Terminal Madness, you know, and my boy Schizo from Terminal Madness, a group out of Oxnard, California, was right downstairs. And we met up with each other and everything was all cool too. But then they started battling. And Schizo, like, he won. Okay. It was something that was all off guard. It wasn't planned or anything. There was just couple of bars got traded back and forth. But you know, when I started seeing things like that, it was just plain and simple. It's like you knew that, hey, you know, these people are talented. Sometimes, you know, not so much Corrupt, but like other artists, they're more talented to a lot of these people that you're hearing on the radio, in my opinion. So I figured that, hey, I had this ability to be able to place them like in a situation to where they could get the promotion. From out of all my attempts to do things, you know, it helped me kind of realize that was my lane right there. Outside of rap and all this other stuff, I got into computers, you know, working in the studio on computers. I was a kid in high school that was like a kind of like an assistant manager at a point at this movie theater. You know, I moved out on my 18th birthday. I was working full time at the time, and I had my own place where a lot of my friends still lived at home. So I felt like, hey, you know, I'm living life. I'm like Dolly Parton working 9 to 5, you know, and I hated the job, you know, and you figure, hey, you know, like talking with this projectionist, because at the time I didn't have the best parental guidance at all. He said, what do you want to do with your life? You know, what do you want to do with your life? And, you know, as a kid, you don't really have answers to those big questions like that. You don't have much experience in life. I did know that I liked computers. So he said, you know, like, why don't you go into school about, you know, fixing computers, putting computers together and stuff like that, because computers are the future. Over 25 years later, you know, I ended up going to school. Shout out to the UCXB Extension too, as well. Gave me a place to learn and certify and get into the field of IT and start working. Because of all of that and the career of that, I was also able to kind of use some of these skills I had got in my computer world, you know, my career, to create a TV show. And I think right then is when, you know, I decided I'm going to be really serious, because in 1995, before social media, before, you know, podcasts, is when I created 805 Hip Hop. 805hiphop.com is a website. It was a bulletin board, battle boards, and people would rap back and forth like that online. it was kind of like a community of our hip hop scene. And it kind of served as a website to where people could find out about hip hop related events and everything like that. So with 805 Hip Hop, I started the 805 Hip Hop show on Caps TV Channel 6. With that, it was taking the shows that we were doing in the nightclub with the big acts and the opening acts and creating a 30-minute TV show on Caps TV Channel 6. 10 o'clock in the night, had bad words on it, unedited hip hop music. And it just created another venue for artists to get their shine on. I think that's where I found out where I was effective as far as music. That's like one of the big reasons why I do it. So, you know, you travel, you go to other places, other countries, are asked, hey, where you from? You know, and yo, I'm from Ventura. And they'll be like, Ventura? Like, where's that? And you're like, oh, you know, like Ventura, like Oxnard. And they're like, I don't know. And then what you notice, people start saying, oh, you know, like LA. And shout out to LA. I love LA. You guys know it, you know. But I was always like, oh man, like in LA, it says Ventura Freeway everywhere. Like, it kind of sucks that we got to say we're from somewhere else, you know. Shout out to Santa Barbara though. Santa Barbara was always known. They knew where Santa Barbara was at. But you're always saying, hey, I was thinking about it like, okay, well, with this show, we can incorporate all these areas, you know, of the 805 together and bring them on the show, and showcase them. So I always said, hey, you know, we're the 805, and that's the whole area between LA and the Bay, pretty much, you know, before you get to the Bay. Let's do something to get people so that we can say, hey, we're from Ventura. Like, be proud of your own city, be proud of your own community, and say, this is where we're from. Because at the time, we had still the award-winning Madlib as the producer that's from here, and he's huge in hip-hop. So it seemed like that created another thing for me to do, say, hey, to just bring more attention to our area. I think that is the reason why I do a lot what I do today. The nightclub stuff lasted for like 10 years. You know, it went for a long time. Eventually the nightclub closed, R.I.P. Nickleby's, you know. You know, it was a sad day, you know, but you know, the world doesn't stop. And that's what leads me to where I've been here for the last little bit over 15 years now, 17 years here, doing a show. I'm the host, Word on the Streets Radio, KCSB 91.9 in Santa Barbara. You know, as kids, we want to party. You know, we want to meet the girls and stuff like that. So here in Santa Barbara, where we're at now, we have a college campus, UCSB, and the surrounding city is called Isla Vista. It's known as a really big party school. So we're coming up on the weekends, we're partying. You know, like when you see people stand upside down on the kegs and they're drinking the kegs and chant and stuff, this is where it's happening right here in Santa Barbara. We would go up there, you know, also trying to perform at shows or whatnot, but we found out about a DJ that was on campus on the radio that played hip hop music. And not only did they play hip hop music, he played underground hip hop music, what people refer to as like real hip hop. And we're like, what? They're like, yeah, you should go check him out. This dude's over there. So we're like 10-4, we're like over there. So we showed up on campus, UCSB at Stork Tower, huge tower. We're like, whoa, this is where the radio station's at. Met this DJ named T-Stone, Tim Stone. Right now, it happens to be a teacher over at Santa Barbara City College that had a show himself. We go up in the station and we find out that he's letting like independent artists, like local cats, get in and freestyle on air. He's doing interviews with them and he's playing music that's like, whoa. So next thing you know, we show up to the radio station. We're over here in the middle of the night, and there's a bunch of other artists here. And shout out to Diesel Daddy, Cracker Jack, you know, Kazi. A lot of these artists that went on to change their names and become some big artists. This cat, T-Stone, let you get on the mic, on air, live. So we couldn't believe it. So it became a weekly thing. So we would come over and knock on the door, see if he'd let us in. And he would let us in. So we decided, hey, you know what? Like T-Stone and, shout out to Chef Santo. There were other DJs here at KCSB. We would bring artists through KCSB and they would play their music. They'd do interviews sometimes with the artists. And I always thought that was really cool. And they'd be like, oh, Traj, man, you should have your own show. You should do your own show. You know, I'm going to school for IT. Started out at a local IT company as an on-site tech. I was fixing Macs and PCs. That's really what I wanted to do. This cat came in at the movie theater one day, was there for 10, 15 minutes, did something, and then left. And then at that point, I looked at the bill and I couldn't believe it. It was like more than I made in half of a week. And he was just barely there. And I said, you know, I got to figure out what he did right there. Outside of, you know, doing music, it's another big part when I work with artists too. And I talk to them about, you know, what they're doing. It's like, you need a way to take care of yourself. You know what I mean? Most people that start in their rap career, their music career, it's really hard to make it. So I always believed that, you know, you got to take care of yourself. I moved out on my 18th birthday, so having a better job was always helpful. But today I have my own business. It's my own computer business. I do on-site and remote computer support, Macs and PCs, workstation servers, install networks, troubleshoot, maintain computers. And I'm your IT guy now. When I started my own business is when I had the freedom to create my own schedule. And it was at that point, after all the years of the DJs at KCSB telling me, Trad, you should have your own shows, when I decided, hey, you know, I can finally do it now. It takes many hours every week to listen to music, prepare, go through the music, and get it ready to play every week. I decided today I got time, you know, and I'm gonna go ahead and, you know, follow up, and I'm gonna start doing the show. I submitted my demo tape for KCSB, and I got on FM. And at that point, you know, it started the whole journey, and I decided what I'm gonna do with my time in the FM radio show, which also streams, because, you know, I asked people how many people actually have radios outside of their car. It's all off your phone and stuff, so we stream worldwide. I view it as a community service, you know. There's a lot of different ways people can give back to their community, or in a lot of different ways, you know. So I chose KCSB as a way to give back to my community through music, spending the time out to big up my city, big up all these talented artists that I get a chance to work with, you know, and see them get their shine on. That's what I get out of it. So with KCSB, you know, it's, you know, we don't get paid here at KCSB. We're all volunteer. We take our time out. We pay for parking. We pay for gas. We pay for everything, so that, you know, that's my contribution back to my community. And it's been wonderful. I can't lie. It's just a beautiful thing to be able to do that. And some of the artists, big and small, you know, that I've worked with, I'm not going to even go through all the names. There's, you know, you can go to 805radio.com, click on our podcast page. I have a lot of different interviews I've done with artists there, big and small. You know, some of these artists I grew up listening to when I was a kid, listening to them, and really looked up to them. And I've been able to have a chance to be involved with them in different ways, sit down, interview, talk about new albums, get new music, and become friends with some of them too as well. So today, here we are, you know, 2022, you know, looking at 2023 coming up. It's the holiday season. And, you know, I asked myself, like, you know, how long am I going to be able to do this? I want to do as long as I can, you know. If you have skills that can help expose the skills of others, you know, use it to give back to your community. Just to kind of wrap it up, you know, what I always suggest with artists, and, you know, it contributes to what I do too as well, is to always consider the education side. You know, always try to educate yourself as much as you can, become more familiar with the business side of music. And man, that's what makes me happy to see you doing after all the stuff that I do here at KCSB. So once again, Wednesday nights, 10 p.m. to midnight. Make sure you guys tune in, and I look forward to working with more of you guys in the future too. And hit me up if you guys got questions.